Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Today we are, as promised, continuing our conference previews for the 2023-24 college basketball season. We've already done the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Now we turn our attention to the ACC, where Duke, Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia are projected by most, not all, but most, to finish first, second, third, fourth in the league standings in some order. Deadleg, first question. Last season, the ACC was merely the seventh best conference in the country, according to KenPom. It was behind the other four Power 5 leagues, plus the Big East, plus the Mountain West. Is this a bounce-back season for the ACC, or just more of the mediocre same?
First of all, I want the names of the people that aren't picking those four teams to be the top four teams in this league. Get me those names by the end of this show. You said most, not all. Who are these people? How dare they? Secondly, what would you call this bounce back? What's a bounce back?
David Cobb would be one of them.
What?
David Cobb would be one of them. He has Clemson third. He has Clemson cracking the top three.
I like that, and we'll get to Clemson in a few here. And that's not unreasonable to have Clemson third, in my opinion. As always, if you're listening, we're going to have this preview linked for the .com/CBS Sports app version, and you can read along and see our staff-wide projections for the conference, and then the conglomerate vote and how that came. But GP and I, as always, are going to give our own individual predictions on the way this league's going to shake out. What would you define as a bounce back? Seventh in KenPom last season. Miami, salvaged a little bit of that, of course, by making the Final Four. Who could forget Miami made the Final Four after all? Anyway, is a bounce back fourth or better in KenPom? Give me the parameters, and then I'll give you my answer.
Produce a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, finish top four league in the country. That's good enough for me.
Okay. I'm going to say no. I'll say it comes just shy of that. Either one. I think one of those two things could happen and will happen, but asking for both might be a little bit of a stretch there. And that's because I think there's going to be a pretty good league race that develops. But it certainly has to be better than last year. That's one of my 5 big storylines, is the fact that the ACC had such a bad fall off last season. It didn't have a team. You mentioned getting a 1 seed. The ACC last season didn't have a team seeded in the top 3. Not a 1 seed, not a 2 seed, not a 3 seed. Miami made it as a 5. Virginia was a 4, and it got promptly knocked out of the tournament, obviously, by Furman, and just a wacky, wild game. Duke was a 5 and did good in Shire's first season, but it didn't make the second weekend. Pitt and NC State both made it to the tournament. Yes, folks, Pitt made it, and I will remind you, Pitt made it and won a couple of games. NC State, if you blinked, you might have missed it, but it was there, and then it was, dismissed by Creighton in short order there. But the league did at least send 5 to the dance. But overall, on balance for the entirety of the season, it was a down year for the ACC. It should almost certainly be better. But that being said, and we'll get to this as we talk about more of these teams, Parrish, there's a lot of room for a lot of speculation on just which teams are going to improve and how this conference might not work itself into a situation where it has 7 or 8 teams in the tournament conversation by the first week of March. That was not the case a year ago.
I'll answer my own question. I do agree with you. I think the ACC will be better than what it was, because it's like you can't be worse. I mean, it would really.
Oh well, you can always get worse.
I know, but you can't. I mean, you can't. I know it's possible, but what, they're going to finish outside of the top 7 and not have a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament again? That seems wildly unlikely to me.
No.
I think it'll be better.
Should be.
Because it can't be worse. But I do not think it'll meet the standard that I set. Top 4 league in the country with a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, I'd bet against that. Although I do think, okay, what's more likely? Top 4 conference or a team with the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Team with the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's the more likely scenario. So better, but not quite a top 4 league in the country that produces a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. What are the 5 biggest ACC storylines heading into this season? Norlander is going to tell us next, but first.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's a word from our partners.
Yeah, it is.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Deadleg, what are the 5 biggest stories heading into the ACC season? Run us through them.
I will. One of them is what we just talked about there, which is no surprise. I figured you're going to tee me up on something similar to that, and I do have that.
I guess you got me all figured out now, huh?
We finish each other's sandwiches, man. Same wavelength. You know it. So that is one of the 5, and the other 4, I have UNC trying to rise from the ashes. Still has Armando Bacot leading the way. How is this going to go for UNC? It's not going to, at least I don't think, it's not going to be a game-by-game prognosis, diagnosis situation like it was last season. However, even though UNC isn't projected to win the league, it is expected to be in the NCAA tournament conversation. And if that, we've already got comments in the chat here about how much pressure Hubert Davis might be under from a job perspective. Before I continue, you know what? We'll save that. I'm going to save that thought until we actually get to Carolina as we do our prediction rundown. I'll just cruise through these. Next one is John Shire in year 2, Duke being a national title contender. Shire did well in his first season, 5 seed, played well, had some injuries, just roster stuff that affected the first, part of the season last season, but overall did a good job. We talked about that on the show, obviously. Will Duke get stronger in year 2, and will we see Duke rise to the level that it was so frequently under Mike Krzyzewski? Another one, things have to get better for Louisville, ? Cardinals 4-28. Kenny Payne and his job, I believe his job is going to be on the line if Louisville doesn't minimally triple its win total output. I think that is just for starters. Even 12 wins, though, might not be enough. We'll see. But everything surrounding Louisville and how much progress we get there, that even though it's a bad team, there will be some rubbernecking still and seeing how much progress that can be made there. And then the other one is Jim Boeheim is gone. The last time Jim Boeheim was not on the sidelines working a Syracuse game, suspensions not included, was what year, GP?
1966.
Ooh, but you were close. 69. We had not gone to the moon the last time. The last time Jim Boeheim was not employed, and he was not a head coach back then. He was an assistant. Man had not stepped foot on the moon. Incredible. So now you got Red Autry there running that program. What will Syracuse look like, and will they be better in the short term? Will it be better for the long term? There were some Syracuse fans over the past couple of years who had gotten understandably angsty over the state of the program and how it was spinning its wheels. Boeheim is now retired. He's still around the program, but I'm very interested to see what Syracuse is now with him no longer running the show. So those are my 5 big storylines for the conference this season.
Okay. We'll talk to North Carolina in a moment. We might not get back to Louisville. I'll just ask you a simple question.
Yeah.
April 1st, 2024.
Gosh, why?
Who's the Louisville coach? No, that's not even fair. Who knows who the Louisville coach? Will Kenny Payne be the Louisville coach?
I'm gonna say yes. I will say yes. I'm gonna say they get enough done that he gets another season. Yeah.
None of us over at CBSSports.com picked Louisville to finish higher than.
What?
Well, most of us.
Who is it?
It's Strongjaw.
Yeah, it is.
Strongjaw's got Louisville
Where?
8th in the ACC.
Look at him.
The rest of us have Louisville
like
14th
this.
or 15th.
Yeah, I like what KB did there. Kyle Boone, shouts to you, because we need some contrarianism in some of these preseason predictions, because I think it's too easy to get, sometimes it's understandable to get, just too comfortable in what the collective might be thinking there. So he's got him 8th. That is aggressive.
It's aggressive.
It's aggressive. If Louisville finishes 8th, Kenny Payne's not losing his job.
I'll agree with that. If Louisville finishes 8th, Kenny Payne will keep his job. I just don't think Louisville will finish 8th.
If we've all got him otherwise, though, 14 or 15, in that scenario, it's very. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I predicted Louisville to finish near the bottom of the conference. But I don't know.
He cannot finish 14th and keep his job.
That's
You got him finishing
yeah.
14th. So do I. You
All right,
cannot
so
finish
if I've got-
14th.
You know what? I'm not gonna be hypocritical. If I've got him finishing that low, that's not gonna be enough to salvage his job. So I'm gonna say no. I go back on my original answer.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, like nobody wants this or wishes for this or is hoping for this or rooting for this. Like it sucks when you talk about people possibly losing their jobs. Like, families are involved, kids are involved, egos are involved, the direct deposits are involved. This isn't fun, but these are the conversations you have in the sport, particularly at a program as historically prominent as Louisville that has fallen to really what are unimaginable depths. Like the idea that Louisville basketball would ever be as bad as it was last season is like, actually, for me, as somebody, I know you know this, I was raised on the Metro Conference. As somebody who was raised on the Metro Conference, who was raised on Purvis Ellison, the Bradford Smith,
I'm more.
it is unimaginable that Louisville basketball would be this bad.
I'll put it this way.
Francisco Garcia is rolling over in his grave right now.
All right. Like there's, you got all these early season conference, MTEs and events and special events. There's one that's still being kicked around right now for the years to come. And it's a multi-year thing, I guess. And I was told recently, like Louisville would ordinarily be like a no-brainer. And it's still under consideration for this, but with so much uncertainty about its future, like it's just not, it's not a top candidate to be involved in this, to be named, to be formed. It hasn't happened yet. But even the idea that you would even have to hesitate on Louisville basketball for something like that was unthinkable 3 years ago,
right?
4 years ago, and now that's just the state of the program.
This program is so strong that Chris Mack left his alma mater after getting a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament to be the coach there.
Yeah. Top 10 all-time program. So we'll see on that. Let's go.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Okay.
Last season, you made note of it. The ACC got 5 schools in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
They're going to match that again, get more, get less. You're going to have to answer that in just a second.
Another word?
If you don't mind, I got to get one more word from our partners.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
I got an Instagram message from somebody. They were like, GP, I hope you're getting paid for these spots on the College Basketball Podcast that are, it seemed to be increasing. I'm just doing what I'm told, right?
Right.
I get an email, do what I'm told. 5 schools got in the NCAA tournament last night. That would have been wild.
This is news to me.
I mean, like overshadowed by Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. 5 schools from the ACC got into the NCAA tournament last night.
Let's do the old A block rundown here. You had the Chiefs 19-8 over the Broncos. Phillies knocking the Braves out of the playoffs, and the ACC got 5 bids to the NCAA tournament.
It was a wild Thursday night in sports. Last season, the ACC got 5. Virginia, like you said, 4 seed. That was the highest seeded team from the ACC. Miami and Duke both got 5s. Pitt and NC State both got 11s. ACC going to get less than 5, more than 5. Exactly 5 teams in the 2024 NCAA tournament. Answer that, and then run us through who makes it into the big dance while unveiling how you expect the final ACC standings to look. We already know you got Louisville 14th.
I will, but first, a word from our partner. Just kidding.
Come on, not a one more.
So I almost wondered if not out of like muscle memory might do that. Okay. I'll say more. I'm going to say the ACC gets 6 this season. Here's my order. I'm going to say Duke 1. I'll go Virginia 2. Yeah, give me some Virginia. Miami 3. North Carolina 4. Clemson 5. Although I was tempted to go Clemson higher. And then I will say Wake Forest is the final team. Wake Forest goes to Dayton, and it squeaks in. And Steve Forbes, and that's a little bit of a wild card pick, but let's have a little bit of fun here. I'll say Wake Forest is the 6th team, and then we'll draw the line. And then I've got Virginia Tech 7, Syracuse 8, NC State 9, BC 10. I've got Florida State at 11. And I'll give some details on some of these teams in a second here. Pitt 12, the Bees under Damon Stoudemire, then Louisville, and then Notre Dame. So that is my I think I mentioned every team there. That's my order. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What do you got?
Well, first I'd like to focus on where you disagree with yourself.
What did I do?
Because over at CBSSports.com, you've got it: Duke, Virginia, Miami, North Carolina, Wake Forest 5, Clemson 6. And here on the Eye on College Basketball podcast, you have decided at some point between sending that email to Marcus Nelson and talking to me, you have flipped Clemson and Wake Forest.
It's not
what exactly happened at Clemson and or Wake Forest?
I wasn't even aware that happened. Is it? Okay. I'm taking all the. I'll take all the blame and all the fault for that. But I can't remember ever thinking I would have Wake Forest ahead of Clemson. So
it sounds like you're finger pointing at Marcus.
No, absolutely not. It sounds like you're insinuating, and how dare you? I definitely have Clemson ahead of Wake Forest, but I do like Wake Forest to be a surprise team this season and break into the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
So.
Well then we agree on the top 5. And oh, by the way, so does Jerry Palm, who has 5 teams projected from the ACC to make the NCAA tournament, just like they did last night. Jerry's got Duke, Miami, Carolina, Clemson, and Virginia. Duke as a 1, Miami as a 3, Carolina as a 5, Clemson as a 10, Virginia as an 11. I would also have those 5 schools in the NCAA tournament, and I actually agree with you. I think they'll get 6, but I don't know who the 6th will be. Like on my ballot, it's Pitt.
Well, then that's your pick. It's a preseason podcast. It's Pitt.
Okay, it's Pitt then.
There we go.
Go Panthers.
That's right.
Go Panthers.
We have massive disagreement on.
Well, here's the thing. This is what the point I was trying to make. After the top, there is a consensus for the most part, a consensus top 5, unless you let Marcus Nelson get his hands on it.
Look out.
There is a consensus top 5, and then I think after that you could take it almost anywhere you want to go. Like if you have Wake 6th, I have Wake 8th, and I've got Pitt 6th, and you've got Pitt 12th.
Yeah.
So there's after the top 5, you can start. Basically, you need to do the top 5, and then you need to do Notre Dame and Louisville at the bottom, and then just fill in 6 through 12, just about a million different ways.
I don't think the math works on that. I don't think you can get a million different combinations, but I hear what you're saying. Let me go from the bottom up.
And I meant 6 through 13, of course.
Okay, let's go bottom up, and then we'll get a little more into the teams that we like to actually compete and vie for the NCAA tournament here. Notre Dame is. Do we have a clean sweep? Them in last place on the site?
No. Jerry Palm's got Louisville dead last.
Okay.
But he's always hated Louisville.
Oh, I mean, it goes back decades. So Mike Shrewsbury's now at Notre Dame. First time in 2+ decades. Bray isn't there. There's
we had not even been on the moon.
Well, no. We had gone to the moon by the time Mike Bray started coaching at Notre Dame.
But we ain't gone to the moon a bunch.
I don't think we've gone to the moon since Bray coached at Notre Dame. I think that window has since passed. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that's the case. Anyway, Notre Dame is my last place pick. Shrewsbury's going to need some time. That roster is barren in terms of proven Division I college basketball commodities. And then I've got Louisville. Trenton Flowers left the program there. Sky Clark via Illinois. Maybe he'll star in the backcourt. We'll see. Damon Stoudemire is at Georgia Tech now, and he got Lance Terry and Miles Kelly back. That's big because I think that they are important players to at least hopefully get Georgia Tech to a place where they can have a good transition period and steal a win or two in the league. But I don't think Georgia Tech is going to be much of a factor. We'll see. And then I do have Pitt. The fact that that Capel got him to the tournament last season was huge. Blake Hinson is back. Federico. Yes, I said it twice. Go ahead and fact check that out. That's big. They lost.
I tell you, the first time you ever get Federico in a shot sheet,
yeah,
like the first time that ever happens to you, you have to double check it.
Okay. Reason why I'm down on Pitt is it was not a good team on the defensive end last season, and I'm kind of wondering if it might be worse. So that's why I'm selling them to where I am. Then we get to FSU. It's coming off one of its worst seasons ever. 9-win team. Leonard Hamilton now 75. I sure would like to see him work FSU back into the top half of the conference. I think they might fall just short of that this season. But Baba Miller, Jalen Gainey, a couple of bigs who I think will have good seasons. We'll see how much playmaking they have in the backcourt. I like FSU just to I'm going to trust Hamilton to at least figure it out to a certain extent and them to be above 500 this season. Then Boston College, and this is still the area where I don't think these teams are going to be vying for the NCAA tournament. Earl Grant's now in his 3rd season, and he didn't load up in the portal, not to say that he should have, but he's going to try and really build this the way that he wants to do it. And Quentin Post is an important guy. He's going to play the middle there. Jaden Zachary, who's a point guard, is going to run things. They don't have an outright star. They did bring a transfer from Charleston Southern in, who I think is going to be a double-digit scorer. Claudel Harris Jr., who should be good. But this is a program that has not made the tournament since the aughts. We might have gone to the moon the last time BC made the tournament, actually. And so I'd love to see them eventually break back through. Don't think it'll be quite this season. And then we get into the territory where I think you're talking bubble teams and teams with some hope. NC State, Kevin Keats lost to your guy, Turkwavion Smith. Obviously, Jarkel Joyner is done with college. But DJ Burns, who's such a fun player to watch, he's back. He's going to hold things down at the 5. DJ Horn from Arizona State is probably going to be a pretty big-time producer there. I just think that there are a lot of roles that need to be defined here at NC State. So I've got them on the outside looking in, and then Syracuse and Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech is probably going to be capable of making the tournament because I think it's going to have enough offense. We'll see on the defensive end, and it's got a good trio of guards: Hunter Couture, Rodney Rice, Sean Padula. They're all back. I would expect Virginia Tech to be a top 5 points per possession team in this league, but I've got them just on the outside looking in. Q's has Judah Mintz back. I think he'll be a top 10 sophomore in the sport. And they got JJ Starling from Notre Dame. So at least Autry is going to have like a really good 1-2 combo in the backcourt in his first season, which I think is very, very needed for a coach in his spot in that kind of year. Because there's going to be a lot of just changes with Q's overall. They did get Naheem McLeod. He's a 7'4" guy from Florida State. We'll see how productive he can be. I think Syracuse fans, while they'd love to get to the tournament in Autry's first year, I don't think that's the expectation. I think they'll be overall relatively satisfied with the direction of the program after one season. So that's the bottom half. GP, why don't you take us on your thoughts on the teams that are going to contend in terms of like what you think about Duke, your expectations for them, Miami coming off the Final Four, Carolina. I kind of take it wherever you go, but I wanted to get the bottom feeders, if you will, out of the way first here.
I have Duke projected to win the league, like most. I have them 3rd in the top 25 and 1 behind only Kansas and Purdue. But when the AP poll comes out and Duke is getting first place votes, I will have no interest in going and looking up who voted Duke number 1 and trying to mock it. The roster is awesome. It was a little bit of an up and down season in year 1 under John Shire, but a lot of that was injury related. A lot of that was Derek Lively took a little while to get comfortable related, but that team got good as the season progressed and was one of the, by the time we got to the NCAA tournament, Duke was, really leading several weeks leading up to that. Duke was playing like one of the best teams in the country. Getting Filipowski back. This is something I've talked about for years. 5-star guys who are legitimate NBA prospects who have really good freshman seasons and then come back for whatever reason. They often have like monster seasons. The biggest example, like in the past, 15 years is probably Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin obviously could have left after his freshman year. at Oklahoma, decided to come back to school, and he was an absolute monster, pretty much from day one. I'm not necessarily predicting that for Filipowski, but I think he's going to be great. He was probably the best NBA prospect who decided to come back to return to college. And, Duke will benefit from that. I think Duke is a legitimate national championship contender, and I won't be surprised at all if the Blue Devils are cutting nets in April, with a second year, still very young head coach. I've got Miami also in the top 10, finishing second in the ACC. Like you said, they're returning, quality players from a Final Four team. Larinaga is one of the not only best in the ACC, he's one of the best in the country. And, I don't know if Miami will end up in the Final Four again, obviously. But I do believe that's a team that's good enough to go to back-to-back Final Fours. I've got North Carolina at 22nd, the top 25 and 1, third in the ACC. If you want to be skeptical of them, I totally get it. They were number one in the country in the preseason last season, missed the NCAA tournament.
Heard it here first, by the way. That fact stat has not been reported or talked about anywhere else.
Nobody else is talking about this. It's 2 straight years of underwhelming regular seasons from Hubert Davis. Obviously, the first season ended with a trip to the national championship game. They're up double digits at halftime. But really, ever since halftime of the 2022 NCAA tournament, it's been a little bit of a mess. And so there is real pressure on him to have a good season. I don't know if it's job pressure, but there is real pressure on Hubert to have a good season. And for what it's worth, I think they'll be good. I look at that roster, and it's hard for me to figure out why that can't be a quality basketball team. How about this? I'll put it this way. That's one of the 25 best rosters in the country. We'll see if it's one of the 25 best teams. I've got Virginia 4th, Clemson 5th, like we said, Pitt 6th. And then after that, I think you've got a bunch of teams that are going to miss the NCAA tournament, although Wake Forest is interesting. They enroll Hunter Salas, the transfer from Gonzaga.
Yes.
They bring back 3 starters. Obviously, Steve Forbes has been dealing with a family nightmare this offseason. For people who aren't familiar, and I'm not telling secrets here, the Wake Forest and Steve have been very open about this. And but his wife, Janetta, suffered a stroke, and she's doing well. Like, I've known Janetta for a long time, 15 years or so. And to hear about this is just scary and heartbreaking. She is doing better, but obviously Steve and his entire family have been just consumed with real life stuff at a time where, in theory, you could be, or you'd like to be focused strictly on basketball stuff as you get ready. It's just like real life has intervened here. So like I'll be rooting like crazy for them to have I'd like to see him have a nice season there. Maybe get Wake to the NCAA tournament for the first time since he's been there. And obviously, more importantly, you just hope that his wife continues to improve and get back to the normal life she was living until this unfortunate thing just hit her the way they sometimes do. I only remember this because I don't know why. Like my father also suffered a stroke several years back. I was playing golf with you when it happened. Do you remember this? We were out in Las Vegas, I think.
I do remember this. Yes.
Yeah. And it's scary. Like it just like you're living your normal life and then something is taken away from you. And you can't. I know you can like cholesterol test and all this stuff, but you can't always see it coming. It just your life changes like that. So obviously our thoughts are with the entire Forbes family and that Wake Forest program. They've had a challenging off season. Dipping down the standings, projected standings a little bit. Florida State's interesting to me, not in the sense that keep an eye on Florida State, in the sense that Leonard Hamilton is a legend. They went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments here recently, including 3 straight Sweet 16s. An Elite 8 was in there. And they've been really bad the past 2 seasons. I think, let me see what that record is. I want to say it's like 17-23 in the ACC, something like that in the ACC the past 2 seasons. Not expected. Unless they surprise us, Florida State will miss the NCAA tournament for the 3rd straight year. Will finish, most seem to think, in the bottom half of the ACC for the 3rd consecutive year. Leonard's age is, you mentioned it, he's 75 years old. That's obviously an advanced age for anybody to still be working, other than, maybe a president of the United States or a senator, right? Maybe Leonard should run for office at this point.
Hell, I'd vote for him. Let's go.
I would vote for, honest to God, Leonard Hamilton running for president of the United States. You wouldn't vote for him? I would. But in a second, Stan Jones, vice president. Why don't we get that? Just give me Leonard Hamilton and give me a Leonard Hamilton, Stan Jones ticket.
I'll
vote for it today.
Let's go.
Today. I just wonder, will we ever see Leonard Hamilton compete for an ACC title again?
I hope so. I thought you were going to say in the Oval Office, and I was going to say, you know what? As fun as this bit is, I'm going to have to say no.
I'm telling you, trial balloon, whatever you got to do. Let's float Leonard Hamilton, Stan Jones ticket and see where it goes.
You got any other thoughts? I got a couple thoughts here. You got any other thoughts?
Now I can only think about Leonard Hamilton as our next president.
Yeah, you go ahead and you mull that fantasy.
That's the only thing I'm thinking about for the rest of the day.
We both got Duke at the top. Here's my thing with Duke. I feel like Jeremy Roach is going to be the team's best player. Now, Filipowski's been awesome. Yeah, I do. I mean,
why do you feel that way? What are you basing that feeling on?
Because he's the team leader. He's been around the longest. He was a really, really good guard last season, and there's even been some mentions here in the chat about Tyrese Proctor having a glow up season, and I think that's very possible. But Roach is a quintessentially awesome guard, and just to talk with Shire over the summer, and I don't know, just to hear his perspective on this team and his own expectations of what Roach is going to be. I think I'll put it this way. Another little tipping of my hand here. I did not vote Filipowski as a first-team All-American because I think some of his stats and production might be taken up a little bit by how much Roach is going to do. Roach averaged, 14 points, 3 assists last season. I think those numbers will go up, and he's got a lot of talent around him. Duke is going to be projected to win the league for many obvious reasons. Mark Mitchell is back. Ryan Young is back. They've got a lot of good freshmen, led by, Sean Stewart. That's the other thing with Duke is which freshman's going to be the star? Is it going to be Sean Stewart? Is it going to be Caleb Foster? It's going to be TJ Power?
It's going to be
no
none
one really
of them.
knows.
All the freshmen will be role players.
You would think that's probably going to be the case, but
and that's why Duke's going to be awesome, because all their freshmen are just going to be role players.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
And you ready for this? Here's where I agree, because I don't want it to sound like I was. Jeremy Roach is awesome. I just don't think he's going to be their best player. I think Cal Phil Powell.
I think there's a chance. I do.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't want that to come across like I was shitting on Jeremy Roach. I think he's very, very good. I just don't think will be the MVP at Duke. I think that'll be the better NBA prospect, the guy who was the better player last year. That's Filipowski. I will say this: Duke has at least 3 guys who could reasonably be All-Americans.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. And maybe Roach is just solid enough, and then Proctor really breaks out in a major way, because Proctor's obviously a viable NBA prospect. And yeah, Filipowski was awesome last season. I think he'll be awesome again. Duke's got just such a good roster, and what else is new? Surprise, surprise. News at 6 here, that I'll put it this way: I can see Roach, Proctor, Flip, and Mitchell, any of them being the guy that was responsible, overwhelmingly more than any other, for getting a big win against a big opponent. And Ryan Young is going to come off the bench. Ryan Young was the MVP of this team for the first 2.5 weeks last season. So there's a lot to love there. We both have Duke number 1. The reason why I'm going Virginia number 2 is water tends to find its level with Virginia under Bennett. Reese Beekman is your sleeper pick to win ACC Player of the Year. Just a tremendous two-way player. He, debated going pro, opted to come back. He's the senior leader. He'll play alongside Isaac McNeely, who is, in my opinion, quite underrated. There's a sophomore named Ryan Dunn, who I think is going to be a big-time pop this season. And then, I've been told there's, this freshman Leon Bond they've got, who will come off a bench initially. He's almost in the mold of a DeAndre Hunter. And the pieces, I just think Virginia will just be Virginia again. So I'm just going to take that. Primarily, the reason why I have them over Miami is I think Virginia will prove to be deeper than Miami. Miami has an awesome starting 5. They bring back Wooga Poplar, who maybe is the most trendy breakout player pick, which I dig that. Nigel Pack's back, Noah Chad O'Meara, Bensley Joseph, and they bring on Matt Cleveland. That team can win the ACC. And what, will Miami prove to be the boss of this league after making the Final Four? I think that's out there, but I don't know. I almost get the sense that Larinaga might not have more than 6 guys he relies on in the rotation, and if that's the case, you can win that way. But any coach will tell you, like, my perfect ideal. Most will say, like, I want 8. And I don't know if Miami is going to have 8. Maybe they will.
Anytime somebody starts talking about more than 8, it's like I guess it's great.
FAU had more than 8, and it absolutely worked. FAU
you can work
into the Final Four.
I just don't think you need more than 8. You can do it with 13, right? But I don't think you give me 8 guys I can rely on who are healthy. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I put Miami narrowly behind Virginia at 3, and then North Carolina. Let's see how this is going to go. You say that's a top 25 roster. Elliot Cadeau is a freshman. He's young. We'll see. RJ Davis, I love. Armando Bacot is back. Harrison Ingram now comes over. We did a whole shoot around on North Carolina, but Cormac Ryan, he steps in. Seth Trimble's back. Jalen Washington, Paxton Wojcik's a transfer that I think is going to be able to come in and be an impact player via Brown. So they've got a lot there. I need to see. I'm more intrigued by North Carolina because I just want to see what the hell this is going to look like. Is it going to be a situation where RJ Davis has taken all the big shots late, Armando Bacot's averaging 18 and 12, and everyone's just kind of filling in elsewhere? Or are we going to see like a real blend of a team where they've got such strong facets and the ability to beat anyone in the league? They've got the potential to do that. I got to see it happen. So that's why I picked UNC 4th. Hubert is entering into a very intriguing season because you said you don't know if there's real job pressure. There will be a real job pressure if we look up halfway through the year and UNC is outside the top 5 in the ACC. Not to say that it will happen. Carolina fans were already plenty vocal on this. It can get pretty damn noisy if they don't match expectations. And expectations this season, I think, are truly be a top 4 team in the ACC. If you can be in that level, then I think you're going to be okay. Last thing, I just want to give a little love to Clemson here, because Clemson, I think, is capable of being that team where we talk about, like, look at the Tigers, man. They're 3rd in this league. I think they could be anywhere from 3rd to 8th. I think that's their range here. They went 14-6 in the league last season. They got close to the tournament. Remember, they staggered. They staggered down the stretch, and that was the reason why they were kept out. But they bring back, PJ Hall might be a first-team All-American in the ACC, so he comes back. Chase Hunter, very good player, is back. He's a stud. They got Joe Girard from Syracuse, and they bring him in hopefully thinking that he can be a 40% three-point shooter, give them 12 to 14 a night. And, there are some other pieces around him. But I do like Clemson to make the tournament with a little bit of room to spare. And I'm open to the idea that I might be even underselling them at 5. Again, I think 3 is their ceiling here. And if you don't know PJ Hall by now, you've been sleeping, man. He is a really, really good player. And it's his involvement on this roster that gives Clemson, in my opinion, their NCAA tournament bona fides for 24.
All right, before we get out of here, your ACC player of the year is?
Okay, I'm going to go here. My order was Bacot, Filipowski, Jeremy Roach. So Bacot's my pick. And then the 2 Dukies right behind him. I think Bacot is going to be dominant. I think he's going to have he's already, he's on his way, if not already achieved some Carolina program records. So I went Bacot narrowly over Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach. What about you?
I've got Bacot second. I went Filipowski as my ACC player of the year. And then for freshman, I went Elliot Cadeau, freshman of the year. Who you got there?
I went Sean Stewart from Duke. Tough scene for people in the chat that may or may not be serious talking about how much I hate Duke. I've got Sean Stewart 1 and TJ Power 2. I think that, and then Kerry Booth, I think, might just get enough minutes and stats that he just is under consideration. But it's going to be, I didn't put Cadeau on there because I think he's good. I think he's talented. I just want to see how much of an impact he has on that roster with so many veterans around him. So I went with Stewart, and it's not exactly a shot in the dark. I just think he might have the best chance at being a productive college player on top of his natural talent there. But you may well be right in terms of the freshmen being role players. Sometimes it tends to be a freshman that really pops and stands out there. But I went with Stewart. I think a Tar Heel will win Player of the Year, and I think a Dookie, a Blue Devil, will win Freshman of the Year.
And then if we're doing preseason Coach of the Year, I'll just go with the guy I think is going to win the league, and that would be Jon Scheyer. He's got the best roster. He should have the best team. If he has the best team and it's a roster he built, he should be the Coach of the Year.
I got one last one before we get out of here because I know you got to go. I've also been trying to pick Transfer of the Year, and I
thought about this because I'm glad you brought this. We're still doing Freshman of the Year. I see some other people are now starting to do just like Newcomer of the Year to involve transfers. You disagree with that approach?
I like the idea, and maybe we should do this moving forward. I like freshman, player, and then transfer. Transfers are so like to me it's a notable thing. Like, who do you think is going to be the most impactful transfer? My pick on this, I'm going to ride with Harrison Ingram at Carolina. I think that he will be the guy that is the best new face in a new place this season. So he is my pick. And the ACC is actually loaded with tons. I mean, there are so many nominees and potential guys that are there. But I will say that one reason why UNC is going to be a comfortable single-digit seed in the tournament is Ingram comes in, pops, and is a wonderful Robin to Baycott's Batman.
All right. I think that's a podcast, Deadleg. I think that's a podcast. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Huck, Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening, watching Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. 5 stars. Leave a nice review. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected. More of us than there are of them. That's got to be in the comments. So please do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then,